There was a time when every flash of a camera carried her name. Imogen Hassall, the woman the tabloids turned into a myth, then tore apart piece by piece. They called her the Countess of Cleavage, a title made to sell papers, not to honor talent. Each headline was a wound written in ink, each photo a fragment of the woman she used to be. To the world, she was the dazzling face of 1,960 seconds, Britain, seductive, confident, untouchable. But away from the spotlight, Imogen was fighting a battle no one could see, surrounded by voices that never stopped talking about her, but never truly listened. And when the noise finally faded, all that was left was silence, and a single question that still lingers decades later. Who was the woman behind the headlines? And why did they never let her tell her own story? Imogen Hassall was born into a world of light and illusion. Her father, a film director, her mother, a stage actress. Art wasn't something she found. It was the air she breathed. From the quiet suburbs of Surrey, she stepped into the limelight with a grace that made her seem destined for the screen. In the late 1,960 seconds, when London pulsed with rebellion and beauty, Imogen became the face of a new kind of cinema, daring, sensual, unapologetically modern. She starred in When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth and Carry On Loving, her image plastered across posters that promised glamour and adventure. Yet behind those bright smiles was a woman who longed to be recognized for more than what the camera saw. It was the press that crowned her the Countess of Cleavage. The name stuck elegant, cruel, unforgettable. It followed her through studios, premieres, and parties, a label she never asked for but could never escape. She had stepped into the light, but it wasn't hers anymore. Because for Imogen Hassall, fame wasn't a blessing. It was a lens, one that showed everything except the truth. Before the world knew her name, Imogen Hassall was simply a dreamer, a young woman who found freedom in performance. Growing up in a creative family, she learned early that the stage could hold more honesty than the world outside it. Ballet, theater, film, they weren't ambitions. They were promises she made to herself. Her first steps were humble. A few lines on television, fleeting moments on stage. But even then, there was something magnetic about her presence, the way her eyes caught light, the way she made every gesture feel alive. When the British film industry began searching for a new kind of leading lady, bold, sensual, untamed Imogen fit the moment perfectly. Her roles in the late 1,960 seconds catapulted her into a spotlight brighter than she'd ever imagined. Audiences adored her. Producers saw her as the perfect blend of innocence and allure. Yet inside, she feared that the world was seeing only one half of who she was. Each success made her more visible, and paradoxically, more misunderstood. And as the applause grew louder, she began to sense the faint echo of something else, a silence waiting behind it. Fame came dressed as a dream but lived like a thief. It gave Imogen Hassall everything she thought. She wanted attention, beauty, immortality, and then began to take it all back. The more the cameras adored her, the less room she had to breathe. Every night out, every friend she met, every heartbreak she endured became public property. The tabloids were relentless. They followed her to restaurants, to film sets, even to moments of grief. When she smiled, they called her seductive. When she cried, they called her unstable. Her life was no longer her own, just a script written by strangers. The nickname, the Countess of Cleavage, clung to her like smoke, turning a talented actress into a punchline. Behind closed doors, she fought to prove she was more than an image, sending out audition tapes for roles that required depth, not skin. But the offers never came. Her marriage to actor Kenneth Ives crumbled under the pressure of constant scrutiny. And when she suffered a personal loss, one too heavy for words, the headlines turned it into spectacle. The lights that once made her shine now burned her from the inside out. In chasing her reflection on the screen, Imogen began to lose the woman she truly was. By the mid-1,970 seconds, the world that once worshipped Imogen Hassall had grown indifferent. The calls stopped coming. Casting agents forgot her number. The same press that had built her into a sensation now mocked her for fading. They printed her loneliness as gossip, her exhaustion as scandal. She tried to fight it, to reinvent herself, to find a way back into the art she loved. But every attempt was shadowed by her past image. Directors whispered that she was too complicated, that audiences no longer wanted her. It was as if she had been erased by her own reflection. The city around her, London's bright, restless streets, began to feel colder. She withdrew from premieres, from interviews, from the endless noise of people pretending to care. Friends said she became quieter, more fragile. She kept a journal, writing about how strange it felt to be forgotten while still alive. The woman who once lit up the screen now lived in a world of echoes. Her fame had been loud, her disappearance was silent. And in that silence, the weight of every headline she had ever endured came crashing down, not with fury, but with a terrible calm. In late 1980, Imogen Hassall retreated to a small hotel in London, not as a star, but as a woman seeking quiet. The years of scrutiny had drained her spirit. She had given everything she could to an industry that no longer remembered her name. Those who saw her in her final days said she was kind, gentle, but distant, like someone standing in two worlds at once. When news of her passing reached the papers, it was delivered with the same cruelty that had followed her for years. The headlines were cold, sensational, and hollow. They turned her final moments into another story to sell, refusing to see the tragedy behind the words. She was 38. Among her belongings were handwritten letters, soft, tired notes that spoke of peace and exhaustion. They revealed not a scandal, but surrender. She had been carrying the unbearable weight of being misunderstood for far too long. The public's reaction was fleeting, a few lines of sympathy, then silence. But for those who knew her, anger simmered. They spoke of a system that adored her beauty and ignored her pain. As one colleague put it, they made her famous, and then they left her nowhere to go. Imogen's story ended as it had been told, surrounded by voices that never truly knew her. Time, merciless as it is, sometimes grants redemption through remembrance. For decades, Imogen Hassall was a footnote, a name whispered in lists of forgotten stars. But when her films resurfaced, a new generation began to see what the old one had missed. Beneath the beauty, there was brilliance. Beneath the glamour, grace. Her brief but radiant career left traces stronger than fame, a presence that felt alive even in silence. In When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth, her eyes carried a defiance the script never wrote. In Carry On Loving, her laughter felt like a rebellion against what they made her become. She wasn't acting, she was pleading to be seen. Modern critics have begun to revisit her story with empathy. What once was mocked is now mourned. What once was dismissed is now defended. Imogen's name has become a quiet symbol for every woman whose image was owned by others, whose truth was rewritten by the press. Her legacy is more than the films she left behind. It is a reminder that fame without mercy is not admiration, but consumption. And through that truth, she has finally taken back her story. Imogen Hassall's life was a mirror held up to the cruel beauty of fame. She was adored for how she looked, not for who she was celebrated in public, forgotten in private. Her story was never about failure. It was about survival in a world that mistook spectacle for success. Every photograph of her now feels different. Behind the glamour lies exhaustion. Behind the smile, a question the world never answered. What happens to those we stop looking at? She gave her youth, her heart, her soul to an industry that devoured its own creations, and when she vanished, the silence was deafening. Her tragedy is not unique. It belongs to every artist consumed by their image, every star who lost control of the story told about them. But in that darkness lies her immortality. Because through her, we see the cost of what we crave: beauty, fame, attention, and the fragility of those who give it to us. Imogen Hassall's name will always echo between the light and the shadow, not just as a cautionary tale, but as a reminder of how easily we forget that behind every headline, there is a human being. When you hear the name Imogen Hassall, what do you see, the legend or the loneliness behind it? If she could speak today, what would she say about a world that turned her life into a story and her pain into profit? Her journey reminds us that fame isn't light, it's fire. And not everyone who touches it survives the burn. But by remembering her not as a scandal, not as a symbol, but as a soul who tried to be seen, we give her something the tabloids never did: dignity. Share your thoughts below. What do you remember most about Imogen Hassall? Which moment in her life stays with you? And if stories like hers move you, stories of light, loss, and legacy, stay with us. Fame and shadows, every star has its story.